By now, the question has changed. This is no longer about whether something happened once. It is about what happened after leadership was told. The lawsuits filed against Yeshiva University and its affiliated high school do not describe a single buried complaint. They describe multiple, across years, across authority figures. Rabbi George Finkelstein is accused in filings of repeated abuse over extended periods. Plaintiffs allege that concerns were raised, that students spoke, that rumors circulated within the community. Rabbi Macy Gordon is named in separate lawsuits alleging abuse and institutional failure to act. The university denies wrongdoing. The cases are part of ongoing legal proceedings. But the filings focus on something larger than individual conduct. They focus on what happened after administrators were informed. According to the lawsuits, reports reached leadership. Complaints were raised to people in positions of authority. Some plaintiffs allege that senior figures, including Rabbi Norman Lamb and Rabbi Robert Hurt, were told. And yet, according to the filings, the structure did not break. The accused remained in place. For years, classes continued, schedules continued, authority remained intact. This is the shift. Because once an institution is informed, silence is no longer ignorance. It becomes a decision. The lawsuits do not describe chaos. They describe continuity, and continuity has consequences. Continuity reshapes memory. When years pass and the structure remains intact, the absence of change becomes its own message. Students learn to measure risk differently. They learn who holds authority. They learn who is believed. And they learn, quietly, who is not. The filings describe environments where reputation carried weight, where institutions were seen not just as schools, but as moral anchors within a community. Disruption would not have been small. It would have been seismic. And that is what makes duration significant. Because every year that passed without rupture meant another class entering the same system. Another group of students placing trust in the same hierarchy. Another opportunity for harm to recur. The lawsuits argue that this was not a momentary lapse. They argue that it became culture. And culture is harder to confront than misconduct. Because culture does not shout. It persists. Duration means opportunity. Duration means new students entering the same environment. Duration means risk did not disappear. It persisted. If one complaint is mishandled, that can be called failure. If multiple complaints surface across years and the system remains largely unchanged, plaintiffs argue that becomes preservation. Preservation of hierarchy. Preservation of reputation. Preservation of order. The university disputes these allegations, but the filings place something else into the public record. Students who say they watched authority figures remain in power even after concerns were raised. Students who say they learned that speaking carried risk while silence carried certainty. That is what institutional inaction teaches. Not just harm, expectation. Expectation that nothing will change. By this stage, the story is no longer about a single administrator. It is about whether the structure itself created conditions where allegations could surface, be contained, and then fade without transformation. Chapter 2 showed what happens when a report is minimized. Chapter 3 showed what happens when warnings are ignored. Chapter 4 showed what happens when protection becomes structure. Chapter 5 asks something more direct. After they knew why, did it continue? If the lawsuits are accurate, the harm did not expand because the system collapsed. It expanded because it held. And once knowledge enters the room, what follows is no longer accident. It is choice. All allegations described are drawn from publicly filed lawsuits, sworn statements, and court records. Defendants deny wrongdoing unless otherwise noted.